Will Paolo Banchero be able to do the unthinkable, and that is lead the Orlando Magic to a series win over the defending champion Boston Celtics, or will this be more of the same as the Boston Celtics cruise their way to the Eastern Conference Finals and potentially to a championship again, a back-to-back championship? We're going to be talking about Orlando's path to winning this series as well as the Celtics. The Celtics certainly seem like they have an easier path to winning this series. But we're also going to be talking about the top matchups to watch, specifically Paolo Banchero versus Jason Tatum. And I'm going to be giving my prediction at the very end of this video for how I think this series is going to go and what my heart says and what my brain says. There's certainly a difference. Okay, so first, as I mentioned, we're going to get into the matchups, the specific matchups between the two best players in this series. But first, before that, guys, make sure that you subscribe. I appreciate the support. We're only 21 away from 1,000 here. We're really making that final push, and I appreciate all of you guys who are watching consistently who have subscribed. This number is way up from what it was a couple months ago, so I definitely appreciate it. Okay, as I mentioned, we're going to get to it. We're going to be talking about Paolo Banchero versus Jason Tatum. Before we get into the team view and the bird's eye view of this series, we just have to talk a little bit about legacy as well as who is going to be matched up on who. Obviously, Jaylen Brown is going into this series and potentially the entire playoffs hurt. So Paolo Banchero might be able to take advantage of that if he is the perimeter defender on him. Maybe if it's Jason Tatum, I don't know if it's going to be, then it might be a little bit tougher. But at the end of the day, Jaylen Brown is an extremely talented perimeter defender regardless, and Jason Tatum's probably pretty good in his own right, especially with the size. Okay, Paolo Banchero has completely turned this season, if you will, around since his oblique injury, and since he came back from that injury, he obviously was dealing with a ton of questions about why isn't he back just yet. He was slower to recover. Okay, that was just the simple fact, and this Magic team definitely suffered when he returned, not because he was playing so poorly and he was shooting this team out of ball games, just simply because they needed him. They were down, they were hurt, they needed their number one guy. He has since been able to rise to the occasion, and we are seeing him average 26 points, 7.5 boards, and 5 assists on the year. He is the number one guy. He is what makes this team go. And unfortunately, we're going to get into Franz and his latest struggles in just a second. Unfortunately, it does seem like he is that clear number one, because you would love him and Franz to kind of be the 1 and 1A, but right now it's Paolo and then it's Franz. Okay, let's get into Jason Tatum. This guy coming into this series, coming into the playoffs, coming into this NBA season, rather, has had a chip on his shoulder. Despite winning a championship and kind of getting that monkey off of his back, he didn't win Finals MVP, and the media is going to make a big deal about that. And then he didn't play much in the Olympics, and neither of those things really matter. They don't really hold a ton of weight, but when we get into basketball legacy conversations, they're going to get brought up. Jason Tatum, we got to make sure that we can limit this guy at least at some points in this series. If we can do that, if we can get a perimeter defender on him and make his life a little bit tougher, that could be the opening that I see for this team, potentially making this a closer series than the experts think. Okay, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about Franz Wagner and probably throughout this video, but he has seemed to develop some sort of issue with his jump shot. As of late, it looks a little different. Like there's maybe a hitch to it. I don't know exactly. I'm not a shooting coach, a shooting doctor, but certainly his three-point percentage tells it all. We talked about it in the offseason. We thought it was going to be improved. We saw him in the Olympics show flashes of improvement, but it hasn't really come to fruition. He can sometimes get kind of phased out of basketball games because he has to drive and find a shot that way, and sometimes that's not available. We'll see exactly how the Celtics end up trying to attack him and what his limitations will be in this series. I don't think it'll be so bad, but with the way that he has come into the playoffs playing, that could be something to really watch, and hopefully he can show up. I think he will be able to, but we're going to have to watch that three-point shot. Okay, Jaylen Brown obviously coming in with an injury, and hopefully for the Celtics' sake, he's not injured, but this is something potentially the Magic will be able to will have to take advantage of. And if Jaylen Brown isn't the same, we're going to have to key in on Kristaps Porzingis and Peyton Pritchard. That is the opening. Maybe some sort of injury. Obviously, you hate to say, hey, look, these guys have to be injured for the Magic to be able to compete, but that certainly provides some sort of opening because the Magic are dealing with injuries of their own with Jalen Suggs and Mo Wagner both out. I was going to mention at some point, I guess I'm going to do it now, Jalen Suggs obviously out for the year. That's the best perimeter defender and the main point guard for the Orlando Magic, and Mo Wagner was the best scorer off the bench. We haven't really been able to replace it outside of Cole Anthony. We were kind of expecting Cole Anthony and Mo Wagner to gel on the bench together at some point, but it seems like their seasons kind of weren't able to cross paths. Cole Anthony was slumping at that time when Mo Wagner was in, and then Mo Wagner went down and Cole Anthony finally picked it up. So Cole Anthony maybe in a way picked it up for the bench scoring, but we certainly need another guy off the bench to help the scoring and help those two guys out, especially if Franz Wagner isn't shooting well. Okay, taking the bird's eye view now on this series. For starters, this is an obvious clash of just two different play styles. This is probably the most stark difference out of all of the first round series between two teams' play styles. The Boston Celtics set the record this season for made and attempted three-point shots, and the Magic led the league in terms of fewest three-pointers made and three-pointers allowed this season. So they do run teams off the three. That is going to be the biggest thing to watch. If this series is filled with games of 120 to even 115 points, that means the Celtics swept. Truthfully, that means the Celtics swept, and those are games that the Orlando Magic don't want to get into against the Boston Celtics. Maybe they can afford one game to do that, but as far as what we've seen this year, that's not going to be a reliable recipe for success for the Magic against anybody, much less the best shooting team in the NBA. Orlando won a close game on December 23rd and had a blowout win in the final week of the regular season. And I know a lot of people have been pointing to not the blowout win last week, but the different matchups and the 4-6 record that the Boston Celtics have against the Magic over the last, handful of years. This is super tough, I think, to gauge because there have been so many players out for both teams, including the Boston Celtics. And I hate to say, when you compare injuries and compare these past contests, that they're not really applicable. But it definitely seems like it's a very confusing stat because you just don't know who's in and who's out and what exactly the team's perspective was on winning in that specific night. And that seems to be the case. I don't really take too much stock into it just simply because that for that reason, it's too tough to tell. But I will say there aren't any teams in the NBA that will be able to win the I'm more injured or we're more injured than you are against the Orlando Magic. So take that with a grain of salt, but I don't really know how much I take that series or the previous series into account when we're talking about this. Okay, let's move into how the Orlando Magic win this series. Well, as I mentioned, run this team off the three-point line, play that hard defense. There is not a single game I think the Orlando Magic can win where Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner don't make a three. That is certainly going to have to they're going to have to fall. That is going to have to be something that we see from those two guys. And we've seen it at times this season. They're not like awful shooting or just completely incapable of making a three. That is just the baseline, and the rest of the team is going to have to pick it up and make some threes. This Orlando Magic team is a completely different ball club when they make over 10 threes. I feel like that's a baseline for this Boston Celtics matchup. They're going to have to do that probably in every game if they are going to want to have a chance. And then if they don't, well, they're probably going to have to play some sort of defense and make sure that they hone in on Kristaps Porzingis and Peyton Pritchard. Obviously, if KP stays healthy, the Celtics team is a different beast. And Peyton Pritchard has been unbelievable all year. If there's any way to make sure, and we could throw bodies at them. We could throw Jonathan Isaac at KP, and we could throw Anthony Black on Peyton Pritchard. There's an angle there where we can slow them down potentially, but they're going to have to do that and make sure that is the case. For the Celtics, if they just play their game, if they can make their threes, play good defense, because they certainly got plenty of their own perimeter defenders, they should be still set. Because if they can play their A game, I don't know if the Magic's A game can match the Celtics' A game. I certainly think this team has a peak, the Orlando Magic, that we haven't seen all year. But without Jalen Suggs and Mo Wagner, this might be a little bit of a different case when we're judging how great this team can potentially play. Okay, so I debated, and I want to make this quick. I debated on giving a prediction. The main reason I debated on giving a prediction is because I don't want to seem like a pessimistic Magic fan. I don't want to be one of those Magic fans that just says, oh my gosh, trade all the players, all this and that. But then I started thinking, and I think the pessimistic fan is just as bad as the delusional fan who thinks that we're going to win this series in 6 games or something like that, right? So I'm going to give a prediction, but I wanted to preface that prediction first again by also saying that a prediction is very close to an expectation. And my expectation is, unfortunately, that the Orlando Magic will go down in 5 or 6 games to the Boston Celtics. I don't think that that's unreasonable to say that they're going to get a game off of the Celtics. I think it can happen. I think they match up well in certain areas. But to throw an expectation that they're going to win this series in 7 games against the Boston Celtics seems unfair. This team has been through a lot. Yes, they are 41-41. I've heard it. I've seen stuff that Boston Celtics fans have said. But this team has accomplished a lot. And for a guy who said all season that this team needs to make a trade and that they're throwing their season away, this team has accomplished so much. I don't feel like that expectation or prediction, which I feel like is a very similar thing, of them winning this series is fair at all to this team. They have improved a lot throughout this year, and they have dealt with so much. At one point, they had 9 guys out with injury. Like, or at least injured or on the injury report. they have gone through so much. I feel like it's unfair for me to just pick them and then have that expectation over their head, because then if they lose in 5 or something like that and I expected them to win or predicted them to win, then I'm all of a sudden disappointed. I'm not disappointed. I hope that this team can put the league on notice and win a game or two and really, or keep this competitive. Like every single game is close. And hopefully that just brings this team and give them some momentum in the next season and brings them into a positive light as the season potentially could come to a close. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. What is your prediction? But I view it as an expectation, and I think it's time to just have fun. It's time to see what this team is all about, what they can do without Jalen Suggs and Mo Wagner. They're playing with house money. Celtics certainly got plenty of pressure on them. I think it'll be fun. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Try to cover everything, all aspects, and make it quick, and try to keep this under 11 minutes. I see the timer right now. So, I appreciate it if you made it all the way to the video or to the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think will happen in this series, and I'll see you guys next time with more Orlando Magic basketball content.